That Kevin McCullough.
And we're back from Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. My very special guest is the soft-spoken Dr. Ben Carson. The Perilous Fight, Overcoming Our Culture's War on the American Family is the book, and it's his brand new work. Dr. Carson, back to public health for a couple of questions. What lessons do you think the American people took away from COVID? We saw Dr. Fauci and Dr. Rand Paul go at it pretty hard in the Congress on a couple of occasions. But I think one of the things that I came away from watching those interactions saying to myself was, well, why do we have someone like a Dr. Fauci in a position that's almost untouchable without accountability? Our government's built on, checks and balances. And in science, you're held in checks and balances by, what the science says, where it says to go, the conclusions it points you to. And yet in a public office like that, highest paid government employee we had, there was almost no accountability on him at all, to the degree that you could correct any behavior.
Well, there was very bad behavior in that they tried to go after people who disagreed with them, who were scientists and in the medical field. And that was a huge problem. And I hope one of the lessons learned was learned by people in the medical community, not to be sheeple, not to allow yourself to be manipulated and go against what you know is true, what you've learned for years and years, just in order for somebody won't cancel you. I mean, you can't be the land of the free if you're not the home of the brave.
Yeah.
And that goes for all of us. We have to stand up for what we know is right.
Well, it's one of those things that when people ask me about what bothered me about that season the worst, and I remember, at least here in New York, Governor Cuomo kind of putting a stop to people talking to their doctors and saying you can only go get therapeutics from the emergency room or from the pharmacy. That's the only place you could get the vaccines, the only place you could get the therapeutics. And the separating people from their actual personal physicians, to me, is a violation that's almost sacred. I mean, the Hippocratic Oath is first do no harm, and you're separating people from the people that know their medical history the most.
And then separating people from their families, confining people to interior spaces when we should have been getting them outside. I mean, just stupid stuff, dumb stuff that had no basis in fact. That was the problem. And we need to have a system of checks and balances in public health at the NIH, at the CDC. There needs to be a check on those organizations, because what's happening now is the World Health Organization is trying to incorporate all the different nations under their umbrella. And if we continue down that road, we'll sacrifice all the freedoms that we have eventually.
Yeah, China sold us out for sure in the last pandemic. So I know it's fictional at this point and nobody's won anything at this point, but I kind of foresee President Trump being reelected, and you served him so honorably and so well. If he called and said, "Hey, Ben, not transportation this time, or not housing this time. What if we put you over at Health and Human Services?" Would you be up for a challenge of that proportion?
I will do everything I can to help save our country from inside the administration or outside the administration. No question about it.
That's good music to my ears. Let's turn to your book, The Perilous Fight: Overcoming Our Culture's War on the American Family. You've been so eloquent in speaking on so many different areas of interest to you. The American family, if anybody bothers to study the statistics, is without question linked, or in most cases unlinked, to our biggest worries about crime, our biggest concerns about African-American men committing crime against almost always other African-American men. There are so many things that the family touches on in terms of sociology and economy and generational values and generational worth. You're talking about, leaving a legacy for your family. If you don't have a family, there's no legacy left. What is it about this topic that said you had to write this book at this time?
Knowing that a lot of people didn't realize that we actually have enemies who are trying to overcome us, who are trying to fundamentally change us into something else. They can't do it militarily, but they can do it from within. And looking within, you look for the basic foundational element of the strength of a society. That is the family.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.